Hello lovelies, I'm Catherine and it's Tuesday. What am I gonna tell you guys? I know, I'm gonna tell you a story about Charles Dickens's babysitter, and actually it was his maid, but she functioned as a nanny, and her name was Mary Weller. Mary Weller was very eccentric. People think that she was the reason that Charles Dickens really got into like storytelling and stuff like that. If you don't know who Charles Dickens is, you need to go to the library. He wrote Christmas Carol, David Copperfield, Tale of Two Cities, you know, classics. Anyway, so one of the stories that Mary Weller used to tell Charles Dickens when he was a little kid, like only like 4 years old, was the story of Captain Murderer. Ooh. He would ask for the bedtime story every single night. And basically what the story was that there was this guy named Captain Murderer. He would ask out girls on dates every single Saturday. And what he would do was, he would ask out all the pretty girls. And he would invite them over in person. He would invite them over by sending them an invitation in their mailbox, and then they would get the invitation and they'd show up to his house on Saturday night. When they showed up to his house, he would open the door and he wouldn't say anything, and she would come in and they would sit down at the dining room table and they would just sit there and he wouldn't say anything. And he had this giant oven, a giant convection oven that you'd see in one of the like big kitchens at restaurants. They didn't have those back then, so it just shows part of how Mary Weller's imagination is so... They had this big oven, but what the girls would normally focus on was in the middle of the dining room table, where she and Captain Murderer would be sitting, was a ginormous pie crust in the middle of their dining room table. And the girl would say, "This is such a giant pie crust. What is the filling going to be?" And he would say, "It's a meat pie." And she would say, "Oh, but what are you going to use for the meat? I don't see any meat." And with that, the captain would stand up, smile politely, walk over to her, and very nicely just cut her head off. And it would fall into the pie crust, and then he would proceed to chop off the rest of her limbs and throw those in there as well. Then he would bake her at a nice 350 until she was golden brown, and then he would eat her and would use her bones for toothpicks. Captain Murderer realized that he already killed all the pretty girls and all the average girls. Now he had to go invite some ugly girls in town to go have some dinner with him. So one day, this girl, she got an invitation to join Captain Murderer for dinner. Her friend got an invite the Saturday before saying, "Come to my house and we'll have dinner and it'll be cool." Her friend disappeared and never came back, so she was a little bit skeptical. But you know, she was ugly, so she never got dates. So she was like, "You know what, I'll go." But since she was skeptical, she took a big syringe. Again, they didn't have those, but she took a big syringe and she filled it with poison made from toad eyes and spider knees, and she put it in her syringe and hid it in her dress. And then she proceeded to go to her date. Captain Murderer opened the door, said nothing, and they walked and they sat at the dining room table and they sat there and said nothing. See, the thing about this girl is, she noticed the giant pie crust on the table, but she didn't say anything about it. She scanned the room and then just went, "Oh my God, what's that over there?" And Captain Murderer went like, "Oh my God, what?" And while he was turned around, she took her syringe and injected the pie crust with her toad eyes and spider knees poison. And then he turned around and he was like, "What are you talking about?" And she was like, "Oh, sorry, I'm seeing things. What the heck is this giant pie crust doing here?" And he was like, "I'm making pie." And she was like, "Oh, but what is the filling going to be?" And he said, "It's a meat pie." And she said, "I do not see any meat." And he stood up, decapitated her, cut off her limbs, and put them in the pie. But this time, when he was eating the pie, he started to get a little bit blue and a little bit big. Picture the scene with Violet from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. This is what is happening to Captain Murderer. So he starts blowing up, right? And he's huge and he's blue and he just explodes. And then the walls, which are a nice white, they turn blue. So the walls are blue now. Mary Weller would say to Charles Dickens, so now, every once in a while, when Captain Murderer is feeling particularly hungry and particularly angry at the girl who killed him, he will come off the walls and become a person again, long enough to kill the closest person near him. And with that, Mary Weller would kiss little Charles Dickens on the forehead, turn out the light, shut the door, and leave him in his nursery, which was painted a nice, lovely blue. Way to go, Mary Weller. Scarring children is always fun. Okay guys, question of the day. When you get older, how many children do you want to have, and what will you name them? Nina, you answer this question tomorrow, and you lovelies answer them in the comments.